Before you reheat tonight's leftovers, look at the clock, not the microwave. The greatest danger may have started hours before you pressed the button. A bowl of rice, a piece of chicken-cooked spinach, or yesterday's eggs may look perfectly normal. They may smell fine. They may even taste fine. But after food is cooked, an invisible countdown begins. If it cools too slowly, sits too long on the counter, or remains warm inside a deep container, bacteria can multiply, while toxins and chemical changes develop beyond what your eyes can detect. Many people believe reheating makes any leftover safe again. That is not always true. Heat can destroy many living bacteria, but it may not remove every toxin they produced while the food was stored. A microwave can also create hot edges and cold centers, leaving parts of a meal below a safe temperature. For adults over 65, this matters even more. Aging can reduce immune defenses, and chronic conditions may make foodborne illness harder to recover from. A mistake that causes one person a difficult night can send an older adult to the hospital. But this is not a reason to fear your refrigerator or throw away every leftover. And it is not scientifically accurate to say that reheating one meal automatically causes cancer. The real concern is a pattern of unsafe cooling, repeated high-temperature heating, burned food, damaged cooking oils, and food kept longer than it should be. The 4 foods in this investigation are common because they are nutritious, affordable, and often prepared in large portions. The food itself is not the enemy. The danger lies in how it is handled after cooking. By the end, you will know why rice can remain risky even after it feels steaming hot, why chicken can hide cold spots, why leafy greens are surrounded by misleading warnings, and why eggs require more careful reheating than most people realize. One simple rule can prevent many of these problems. Cool quickly, store promptly, and reheat evenly only what you plan to eat. Your kitchen should support your independence, not quietly work against it. When leftovers enter the refrigerator, heat stops being the main story because time, moisture, oxygen, and storage temperature begin changing what happens next inside food. Cooking kills many microbes, but it does not erase every bacterial spore, every toxin, or every mistake made while food slowly cools afterward at home. This distinction matters because people often use the words hot and safe as though they mean exactly the same thing in every kitchen situation today. In reality, reheating can correct some problems, but it cannot reliably reverse damage that developed during several careless hours at room temperature before refrigeration began. One important example is Bacillus cereus, a bacterium whose spores can survive cooking and later grow when cooked. Starches remain warm for too long unattended. Those growing bacteria may produce toxins, and some of those toxins tolerate heat well enough that another trip through the microwave offers little protection afterward. This is why steaming rice can still make someone ill if the rice spent hours cooling on a counter or inside a large covered pot. Heat may kill active bacterial cells, yet it cannot travel backward in time and prevent toxins that were already created before reheating ever began there. The same principle applies to meat soups, casseroles, and sauces that remain lukewarm because they were stored in deep containers, holding trapped heat too long. A refrigerator cools the outside first, while the center may stay within the bacterial danger zone far longer than most people would ever suspect possible. Microwaves create another misunderstanding because they can make a plate feel extremely hot while leaving colder pockets hidden beneath thicker pieces of food inside it. These cold spots matter most in poultry-dense casseroles and layered meals, where harmful organisms may survive unless every portion reaches a safe temperature fully. Stirring, rotating, covering, adding moisture, and allowing standing time can help distribute heat. But a thermometer remains more trustworthy than appearance alone when reheating leftovers safely. For most reheated leftovers, the center should reach 165 degrees Fahrenheit, especially when the person eating has reduced immunity or serious chronic illness already present. Yet higher heat is not automatically better, because scorching food can create unwanted compounds while drying proteins and oxidizing fats more aggressively than necessary overall. The safest goal is thorough, even reheating, not burning the surface, boiling food repeatedly, or making the edges hard while the center stays cool inside. Oxygen also changes leftovers during storage, particularly foods rich in fat, because exposed fats slowly oxidize before they ever return to the stove again later. Repeated high temperature can accelerate this oxidation, producing off flavors and reactive byproducts, especially in fried foods or meals coated with old cooking oil residue. That does not mean one properly reheated meal causes cancer, but routinely overheating, charring, or reusing degraded oil is an unnecessary exposure worth reducing today. Food safety and long-term health therefore meet at the same practical point: control time and temperature before worrying about dramatic claims circulating online everywhere today. Leafy vegetables reveal another common confusion because naturally occurring nitrates are not automatically dangerous and can support normal blood vessel function in adults when eaten. Storage conditions can alter nitrate and nitrite levels, but claims that reheated spinach suddenly becomes a powerful carcinogen go beyond what evidence clearly supports today. The sensible response is not fear, but prompt refrigeration, reasonable storage times, clean utensils, and gentle reheating only when the dish needs warming again safely. Eggs create similar alarm online, although the clearest concerns involve quality loss, uneven heating, bacterial safety, and possible pressure buildup in intact microwaved eggs themselves. Properly refrigerated egg dishes can be reheated safely, but they should reach the recommended temperature without being repeatedly cooked until rubbery, dry, or scorched throughout. The real lesson is that reheating is only one step inside a chain that begins when cooking ends and continues until every final bite disappears. Safe leftovers require clean hands, quick cooling cold, refrigeration, limited storage, even reheating, and immediate serving rather than repeated warming throughout the day at home. A smell test cannot guarantee safety because many harmful bacteria and toxins produce no dramatic odor, discoloration, or visible warning before someone eats them unknowingly. For older adults, the best protection is not a stronger microwave setting, but a smarter routine that prevents dangerous conditions from developing initially at all. Once you understand what heat can fix and what it cannot, every remaining food warning becomes easier to judge calmly, accurately, and safely in practice. Rice is one of the most familiar foods in the world, and that familiarity is exactly why its storage risk is so often underestimated. Many families cook a large pot, leave it covered on the stove, and return several hours later, believing the next heating cycle will make everything safe again. The real danger does not begin when rice enters the microwave. It begins while cooked grains remain warm enough for bacterial spores to wake, grow, and produce toxins. Raw rice can naturally carry spores of Bacillus cereus, a bacterium found in soil and the environment. These spores are unusually resistant and may survive the original cooking process. That does not mean every serving of rice is dangerous. It means cooked rice must be handled correctly after the heat is turned off. As rice cools, its moisture and starch create favorable conditions for surviving spores. When the rice remains between approximately 40 and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, bacteria can multiply rapidly. A covered pot can be particularly deceptive because the surface may feel cool while the dense center remains warm for hours. Some strains of Bacillus cereus can produce cereulide, a heat-stable toxin associated with the vomiting form of food poisoning. Reheating may destroy many active bacterial cells, but it may not reliably destroy toxin that was already produced during improper storage. This is the scientific reason behind the warning, sometimes called fried rice syndrome. The name makes the problem sound as though frying causes the illness. It does not. The decisive mistake usually occurred earlier when cooked rice was left at room temperature too long or cooled too slowly. Symptoms can begin quickly, sometimes within only a few hours. A person may experience nausea, vomiting, abdominal discomfort, or diarrhea. Most healthy adults recover, but older people can become dehydrated more easily, especially when they also take medications that affect blood pressure, kidney function, or fluid balance. For someone in their 70s or 80s, severe vomiting is not merely inconvenient. It can lead to weakness, dizziness, a fall, confusion, or an emergency visit. That is why prevention is far more valuable than trying to rescue questionable rice with extra heat. There is also an important myth to correct. Reheating rice once does not automatically turn it into a cancer-causing food. The strongest established concern is food poisoning from poor time and temperature control. Claims that ordinary reheating reliably produces dangerous amounts of acrylamide in moist rice are not well supported. Acrylamide forms mainly when certain starchy foods are browned at high temperatures during frying, roasting, or baking. It is more relevant to deeply browned potatoes, toasted products, and heavily fried foods than to plain rice gently warmed with moisture. The practical message is therefore more specific and more useful. Do not fear rice, but never allow it to cool carelessly. After cooking, divide a large quantity into shallow containers rather than leaving it inside a deep pot. A thinner layer releases heat faster. Refrigerate it promptly, ideally within 1 hour when practical, and never leave it at room temperature longer than 2 hours. On very hot days, the safe window becomes even shorter. Keep the refrigerator at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below. Store rice in clean covered containers and avoid repeatedly opening the same large box, warming the entire amount, then returning the remainder to the refrigerator. Instead, remove only the portion you intend to eat. Add a small spoonful of water, cover it loosely, and reheat it until steam rises throughout the serving. Stir halfway through microwave heating so colder pockets are exposed. Check several areas, especially the center, and make sure the rice reaches 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Once reheated, eat it immediately. Do not leave it on the table for another long period, and do not cool and reheat the same portion again. Storage time also matters. Although many general leftover guidelines allow properly refrigerated foods to remain for 3 to 4 days, rice deserves especially careful handling because its risk depends heavily on how quickly it was cooled. For older adults, using refrigerated rice within 1 day is a cautious and simple habit. When you cannot remember when the rice was cooked, how long it remained outside, or whether it was refrigerated, promptly discard it. A few saved grains are never worth a night of vomiting or a dangerous episode of dehydration. Rice remains an affordable and valuable source of energy. It does not need to disappear from your kitchen. What needs to disappear is the habit of leaving a warm pot unattended and trusting the microwave to erase the past. The safest rice is not necessarily the rice heated most aggressively. It is the rice that was cooled quickly, refrigerated, promptly stored cold, reheated evenly, and eaten without another delay. Chicken and leafy greens seem like an unlikely pair, but they reveal the same hidden problem: a healthy food can become unsafe when people follow the wrong storage or reheating advice. Chicken is often prepared in large batches because it is convenient, affordable, and rich in protein. For older adults who live alone, one roasted chicken may provide several meals. The danger does not come from reheating chicken itself. It comes from cooling it, slowly storing it too long, or warming it unevenly. Cooked poultry can become contaminated after cooking through hands, cutting boards, utensils, or contact with raw foods. Bacteria may also multiply if the chicken remains on the counter for more than 2 hours. Placing an entire hot bird inside a deep container can slow cooling, allowing the center to remain warm longer than expected. Microwave reheating creates another challenge. Microwaves do not always heat food evenly. One edge may be painfully hot, while a thick section near the bone remains cool. These hidden cold spots may allow surviving bacteria to remain active. This is why touching the surface is not enough. Cut large pieces into smaller portions before reheating. Arrange them in a single layer with thicker sections toward the outside of the plate. Add a small amount of broth or water, cover the dish loosely, and pause to turn or stir the food. After heating, allow the chicken to stand briefly so the temperature can spread more evenly. Use a food thermometer in the thickest parts and confirm that every section reaches 165 degrees Fahrenheit. At the same time, avoid turning safety into overcooking. Repeatedly scorching chicken until the edges become dark, dry, and bitter is unnecessary. Very high temperature browning can increase the formation of compounds such as heterocyclic amines, especially when meat is charred. These compounds are associated with high temperature cooking, not simply with the fact that the chicken was refrigerated and reheated once. Gentle, even warming is therefore better than burning the outside while trying to heat the center. If the chicken was cooled promptly and stored correctly, reheating it once is generally reasonable. If you cannot remember how long it sat outside, if it has been repeatedly warmed and cooled, or if it has remained refrigerated beyond a safe storage period, discard it. Do not depend on smell alone. Leafy greens require a different kind of clarification. Spinach, celery, Swiss chard lettuce, and beet greens naturally contain nitrates. Online warnings sometimes claim that reheating these vegetables automatically transforms them into cancer-causing food. That statement is too absolute. Dietary nitrates from vegetables are not identical to the risks associated with processed meat. In the body, vegetable nitrates can contribute to nitric oxide production, which helps blood vessels relax and supports healthy circulation. Leafy greens also supply fiber, folate, potassium, magnesium, and protective plant compounds. Under certain storage conditions, bacteria can convert some nitrate into nitrite. Nitrite can participate in reactions that form N-nitroso compounds, but the actual process depends on multiple factors, including temperature, acidity, food composition, bacterial contamination, and the presence of antioxidants. Vegetables naturally contain vitamin C and other antioxidants that may reduce nitrosamine formation. For that reason, the claim that one reheated serving of spinach directly causes cancer is not supported by the source material strongly enough to present as fact. The more practical concern is poor storage. Cooked vegetables should not remain warm for hours, especially when mixed with meat. Cream, eggs, or sauce. They should be cooled promptly, placed in shallow covered containers, and refrigerated at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below. When reheating cooked greens, warm only the amount you plan to eat. Heat them evenly, avoid boiling them repeatedly, and serve them immediately. Many people also enjoy leftover greens, cold in salads, grain bowls, or sandwiches, provided they were refrigerated safely. Texture and nutrition can decline with repeated heating. Spinach may become watery, dull, and overcooked, while heat-sensitive nutrients can decrease. That is a quality issue, however, not proof that the food has suddenly become poisonous. For seniors, the most useful rule is simple. Do not fear nutritious food because of dramatic headlines. Instead, pay attention to the handling history. Chicken that was left out all afternoon cannot be rescued by a powerful microwave. Spinach that was cooled quickly, refrigerated promptly, and reheated once is not automatically a cancer threat. The difference is not whether a food appears on a frightening list. The difference is whether time, temperature, cleanliness, and reheating were controlled from the moment the meal ended. Eggs are often treated as the most surprising item in this conversation because they seem simple, familiar, and nutritionally complete. They provide high-quality protein, choline, vitamin B12, selenium, and important nutrients that support the brain, muscles, and eyes. For many older adults, eggs are also easy to chew, affordable, and convenient. The problem is not that a cooked egg suddenly becomes poisonous the moment it is warmed again. The real concerns are improper storage, uneven heating, repeated high heat, and the physical changes when egg proteins and fats are cooked too aggressively. Egg proteins tighten when exposed to heat. During the first cooking, that process changes a liquid egg into a firm one. When the egg is heated again for too long, the protein network contracts even more. Moisture is pushed out. The texture becomes rubbery, and the food may become harder to chew or digest comfortably. For seniors with dry mouth, swallowing difficulty, dentures, or reduced appetite, this matters. A tough, dry egg may be technically edible, but unpleasant enough that the person eats less protein than intended. Egg yolks also contain fat and cholesterol. When foods containing fat are repeatedly exposed to oxygen storage and high temperatures, some oxidation can occur. Scientists study oxidized cholesterol compounds because they may contribute to inflammation and blood vessel damage under certain conditions. However, this does not prove that reheating one refrigerated egg creates enough of these compounds to cause cancer. The amount formed depends on temperature, cooking time, oxygen exposure, preparation method, and how often the food is reheated. The strongest practical advice is therefore to avoid repeated scorching rather than to fear every warmed egg. There is also a more immediate microwave hazard. A whole hard-boiled egg, especially one heated in its shell, can build pressure internally. It may burst inside the microwave or explode when it is cut, bitten, or disturbed afterward. This can cause serious burns to the mouth, face, or hands. Never microwave an intact hard-boiled egg. If warming is necessary, remove the shell, cut the egg into smaller pieces, and use gentle heat. Egg-based casseroles or scrambled eggs should be covered, stirred when possible, and reheated until they reach 165 degrees Fahrenheit throughout. Yet eggs are only part of the story. The oil surrounding a reheated meal can matter just as much as the food itself. When cooking oil is heated repeatedly, especially at frying temperatures, it begins to break down. Oxygen, moisture, and high heat can promote lipid oxidation and create compounds such as aldehydes, peroxides, and other degradation products. The oil may darken, thicken smoke earlier, or develop a stale odor. This is especially relevant to fried chicken, fried rice, breaded foods, and leftovers coated in oil from the original cooking process. Reheating them at high temperature can expose the same fats to another round of oxidation. The greatest concern involves oil that is reused many times for deep frying, not a small amount of fresh oil used to warm one meal gently. Repeatedly heated oil can lose quality, irritate the digestive system, and increase exposure to oxidation products that researchers continue to study for their effects on inflammation and long-term disease. Never assume that an oil is safe merely because it is labeled natural, plant-based, or heart-healthy. Even high-quality oil can degrade when overheated repeatedly. Watch for warning signs. Oil that smells rancid, appears unusually dark, forms persistent foam, feels sticky, or smokes at a lower temperature than expected should be discarded. Do not save heavily used frying oil indefinitely. And do not pour old oil over fresh food simply to avoid waste. For leftovers, choose gentler methods whenever possible. A covered skillet over low heat, a low-temperature oven, or a microwave used in short intervals can warm food without producing burned edges. Add moisture when reheating eggs or lean protein so the food does not dry out before the center becomes hot. Portion size also protects food quality. Reheat only what you plan to eat. Every cycle of warming, cooling, and reheating increases opportunities for contamination, moisture loss, oxidation, and uneven temperatures. Eggs can remain part of a healthy senior diet. Cooking oils can also be used safely. The goal is not to eliminate either one. The goal is to respect what repeated high heat does to protein, fat texture, and safety. Freshly cooked eggs are usually best. Properly refrigerated egg dishes can be reheated once. Intact boiled eggs should never enter the microwave. Old frying oil should not be reused endlessly. The safest meal is not the one heated until it is dry and smoking. It is the one stored correctly, warmed, evenly served promptly, and treated with just enough heat to make it safe without damaging it unnecessarily. The safest leftover routine begins before the meal is finished. It does not require expensive equipment, complicated chemistry, or fear of ordinary food. It requires a small number of habits performed consistently, especially in homes where older adults prepare several meals at once. The first habit is portion planning. Cook enough for the meal and a clearly defined number of future servings. Large quantities may seem efficient, but they take longer to cool and are more likely to be warmed repeatedly. As soon as dinner ends, separate the remaining food into individual portions. Do not leave a large pot of rice, soup, chicken, or casserole sitting on the stove until bedtime. Perishable food should normally enter refrigeration within 2 hours. When the room is hotter than 90 degrees Fahrenheit, that window falls to 1 hour. Use shallow containers rather than deep bowls. A thick mass of food holds warmth in its center, even when the container feels cool on the outside. Dividing food into layers no deeper than about 2 inches allows heat to escape faster and helps the refrigerator lower the temperature more evenly. Your refrigerator should remain at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below. A small appliance thermometer can confirm the actual temperature because refrigerator settings do not always match the temperature inside. Avoid packing shelves so tightly that cold air cannot circulate around containers. Label leftovers with the date they were cooked. Memory becomes unreliable when several containers look alike, particularly after a busy week. Most properly handled cooked leftovers should be used within 3 to 4 days. Rice deserves additional caution, and using it within 1 day is a simple protective choice for older adults. When the date is uncertain, discard the food. Do not taste a questionable spoonful to decide whether the rest is safe. Dangerous organisms and their toxins may be present without changing the smell, flavor, or appearance. Before reheating, remove only the serving you plan to eat. Returning a partially warmed container to the refrigerator creates another cooling cycle and another opportunity for bacterial growth. One cooking cycle followed by one carefully controlled reheating is a useful household rule. Microwave users should arrange food in a loose, even layer. Place thicker pieces near the outside where they may receive more energy. Add a little water broth or sauce to dry foods, then cover the dish with a microwave-safe lid that allows steam to escape. Pause halfway through heating. Stir rice soups, vegetables, and casseroles thoroughly. Turn pieces of chicken and rearrange them, so previously cool surfaces receive more heat. After the microwave stops, allow the dish to stand briefly. Heat continues moving through the food during this resting period. A food thermometer is one of the most valuable tools in a senior kitchen. Check the center and several thick areas rather than testing only the hottest edge. Reheated leftovers should reach 165 degrees Fahrenheit throughout. A thermometer is especially important for poultry egg casseroles, gravies, sauces, and dense combinations of meat and starch. Steam alone does not prove that every section has reached a safe temperature. Neither does a plate that feels hot beneath the food. On the stovetop, use low or medium heat and stir frequently. Bring soups, sauces, and gravies to a strong simmer while preventing scorching at the bottom. In the oven, cover foods that dry easily and allow enough time for heat to reach the center. Never use a slow cooker to reheat cold leftovers. Slow cookers may keep food at an unsafe lukewarm temperature for too long before the center becomes hot. They are useful for keeping already hot food warm, but not for bringing refrigerated meals rapidly to a safe temperature. Cleanliness completes the system. Wash hands before handling leftovers. Use clean utensils rather than the fork that touched your mouth during the meal. Keep cooked food away from raw meat, raw poultry, and unwashed cutting boards. Older adults should be particularly cautious when illness, cancer treatment, diabetes, kidney disease, or immune-suppressing medication reduces the body's defenses. Caregivers should follow the same routine rather than assuming that extra microwave time can correct several days of poor storage. These precautions may sound detailed, but they quickly become automatic. Portion the food cool. It promptly date the container, keep it cold, and heat one serving evenly to 165 degrees. That sequence protects more than the stomach. It helps preserve strength, hydration, mobility, and independence by reducing the chance that a preventable foodborne illness becomes a medical emergency. The most powerful safety device in your kitchen is not the microwave. It is the routine you follow before, during, and after every meal. Leftovers are not your enemy. Rice, chicken, leafy greens, and eggs can still belong in a healthy kitchen after 65. The real danger is the false confidence that any food becomes safe simply because it feels hot. Now you know what matters more. Cool cooked food promptly. Divide large portions into shallow containers. Keep the refrigerator at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below. Label each container with the date. Reheat only the portion you intend to finish, and make sure the center reaches 165 degrees Fahrenheit. Those steps may seem small, but small habits protect the things that become more precious. With age, your strength, your balance, your clear thinking, and your ability to care for yourself. Remember the rice lesson. Heat cannot reliably remove toxins that formed while food sat warm for too long. Remember the chicken lesson. A steaming edge can hide a dangerously cool center. Remember the lesson from leafy greens. Dramatic headlines often exaggerate the cancer risk, while ignoring the real importance of storage and cleanliness. And remember the egg lesson. Repeated overheating damages quality, while an intact boiled egg can become a burn hazard inside a microwave. You do not need to fear every meal or throw away nutritious food without reason. You only need to respect the invisible timeline that begins when cooking ends. Before eating your next leftover, ask 3 questions. How quickly was it refrigerated? How long has it been stored? Has every part been reheated evenly? When the answer is uncertain, letting the food go is not wasteful. It is an act of protection. The price of replacing one serving is small compared with the cost of dehydration, hospitalization, or losing several difficult days to an illness that could have been prevented. Share this information with someone who cooks for an older parent, lives alone, or prepares meals several days in advance. One safer kitchen habit could prevent a serious emergency. This video is for education only and does not replace advice from your physician or registered dietitian. Individual needs may differ, especially during cancer treatment or when immunity is reduced. Stay informed, stay independent, and let your kitchen remain a place of nourishment, confidence, and care.